Welcome back. This is the Ben Shapiro Show. We're taking your calls at 855-236-3228. That's 855-236-3228. Sam in Massachusetts, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Sam.
Hey, Ben, I'm a new subscriber, and I want to thank you for everything you do.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so I was just wondering today what you think on the possibility of, if we do have a Joe Biden presidency, what good do you think will come out of it, and what bad, and what do you think will not change at all?
So the bad that will come out of it is very obvious. On foreign policy, he will weaken the United States. He will attempt to reinstate the Iran deal in the Middle East. He will go soft on China. He has said over and over he doesn't think China is a threat in any real way. And so, I expect that he will go soft on China again, which would be a very, very bad move. In terms of domestic policy, he will obviously attempt to raise taxes. That will be bad for the economy. He will reinstate regulations, particularly environmental regulations, but also tax and spend regulations. He will presumably attempt to go for a public option in the medical space. If he has a Democratic majority in the Senate, it's possible he's able to ram that through in the same way that Nancy Pelosi rammed through Obamacare in the first place, although I doubt he'll have enough of a majority in the Senate to actually get that passed. That's the downside. The good side is that Biden will have foreclosed Sanders, which will be good. If Biden were to, God forbid, win the presidency, at the very least, the Democratic Party doesn't swing out to become the party of full-blown communism, which I think is horrible for the country. I don't think that Joe Biden, despite his best efforts to pretend to be a Howard Zinn historian, I don't think he actually believes that kind of stuff about the United States. So that will be fairly good. I don't think that Biden is inherently as offensive as somebody like a Bernie Sanders to basic American ideals. I think that he's likely to be doddering and annoying, but not exactly dangerous to America in the same way as Bernie Sanders, which is one of the reasons why I think Trump wants to run against Sanders, because he can point at Sanders and go, that guy's dangerous. If he points at Biden, it's like more like that guy's not with us, right? The guy's senile. Those are, I think, the upsides and the downsides of a Biden presidency. I think that things calm down in the country a little bit, mainly because the Democrats will have won, so the Democrats don't go quite as nuts. And for Republicans, while people would be very ticked if Trump didn't win, I think that it's hard to get quite as ticked about Biden winning as it would be about Sanders winning, right? I mean, I don't think he presents an existential threat to the country in the same way that he'd be terrible. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I just named all the reasons I think he'd be worse than Trump. I would not support Biden over Trump in any case, like at all. But if Biden were to become president, it would be less damaging to the country than if Sanders were to become president or something. So those are sort of the upsides and the downsides of Biden.
I totally agree with you on that. And do you think the Senate will change if Biden is on the ticket versus if Bernie, God forbid, does? And do you think the House is going to turn Republican, or how do you think that's all going to work out?
I think that Sanders has no coattails at all, and maybe reverse coattails. I think if Biden, were to win, he presumably would have some more coattails. He doesn't alienate moderates and particularly suburban women in the same way that Bernie does. Remember, Trump has some vulnerabilities. His vulnerabilities particularly are with minority communities and with young people and with suburban women. Now, young people don't tend to vote, right? Bernie was really counting on young people turning out to vote, but he does really poorly, does Bernie, with minority audiences, and he does really, really poorly with suburban women. And so those are audiences that could theoretically turn back to Trump, which is why Trump wants Bernie as the nominee. Biden is much more, I would say, durable with minority audiences. With suburban women, he is significantly more durable. With young people, he doesn't do anything. But young people are hard to hang your hat on. So this is why Biden is a stronger candidate in a general election than Trump. I mean, not than Trump, than Sanders. It's also why Biden happens to have a broader map, right? Biden is going to challenge in states like Pennsylvania. He will challenge in Wisconsin. He will challenge in Florida, for example. He has a much broader map. He doesn't have to win quite as many states that are on tenterhooks as Bernie Sanders. So he's got some strengths as a candidate just because he is not offensive, right? I've been saying this for a year. The fact that Joe Biden is a dead person actually cuts in his favor in a general election. It makes the issue about Trump as opposed to being about Sanders.
Yeah, I agree. I think if Biden and Trump if they were to go in a general election, I think Trump's personality was what would really hurt him in the general election, especially with purple states.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that Biden is a harder run for Trump. He is. I mean, I've been saying this for a long time. Doesn't mean Trump wouldn't beat him. It doesn't mean it's a harder run. Sam, really appreciate the call. Rachel in Oregon, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Rachel.
Yes, thank you, Ben. I had a question. So things are becoming more and more political as the years go on, I think, due to social media. And so I have a 13-year-old and 11-year-old. And my sixth grader, my 11-year-old, was asked in class how they felt about Trump. Do they want him as the president, for the next election and things like that. And, my son's answer was, well, it doesn't affect me. And, I kind of had a word with him and was like, actually, it kind of does, because, these are the candidates. And their dad happens to be a Bernie Sanders fan and is going to vote for him. And so we had a discussion on the differences between if Trump stays president or if Sanders becomes president. And at what age is it really appropriate to really dive into, I guess, the seriousness of politics?
Yeah, so
and
Rachel,
everything.
I have kids who are 6 and soon to be 4. I'm gonna have another one on the way, maybe like this very moment. And my answer is that as the questions arise, you have to deal with it. I mean, really, I've had my daughter ask me specific questions about politics and she's 6, right? Questions not that she hears in school, but like, for example, we were reading about Purim the other day, which is a holiday that's coming up next week. For Jews, it talks about Esther and Mordecai and sort of the Persian Empire. And she said, could we go to Shushan, which is one of the cities mentioned in the Megillah? And I said, well, we can't. It's in Iran. And she says, well, what's bad about Iran? And so I have to explain to her why the Iranian regime is bad, like in very, very basic terms. Yeah. As questions arise, you answer them in the most honest way possible. That's taking your kids seriously. I think that is different than sort of foisting politics on them, but values are politics. You teach your kids values, and that is going to have political ramifications, Rachel, and that starts from the earliest age. They're asking questions about values, which do have political ramifications. Rachel, really appreciate the call. Today is Super Tuesday. So this evening, we're going to find out whether Joe Mentum is real or a figment of imagination. This is The Ben Shapiro Show.